welcome to another edition of A Little Perspective. I think all of our episodes are special, but this one is definitely extra special in that we get to talk about adoption of LP children, and that is so special to me, especially when a parent chooses for an adoption for that case. So we have an amazing guest who's going to share quite the journey that she has had with her daughter. And I really think that you will certainly walk away with all kinds of new information and a new appreciation for the adoption process. So Samyuktha, how are you doing today?
Doing great, can't complain. I too am excited to be introducing our guest and hearing her story about the adoption process and her daughter and all the challenges, but also there are so many things to be thankful about too. So I definitely am excited to introduce our guest. Her name is Dani Baisden. She is from Brandon, Mississippi, and she has two daughters, both that are adopted from India. And I will hand it over to Dani, who will introduce herself. Take it away.
Okay. Hi. Yes. Like she said, my name's Dani Baisden. My husband, Jason, and I have adopted two amazing kids from India. One is from South India, Lakshmi, and she is 11 years old. And my youngest is from Northwest India in Punjab, and she is 4 years old. They both just turned 11 and 4. And what is super awesome about both of them is they both just happen to be blind. And Hope is my rare little unicorn who we found out a lot more about her after she came home. But her journey is a miracle from beginning to end. And I can't wait to share her story with y'all.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, it's like,
no, thank you so much, Dani. So I guess the first question would be just how did you come to decide on international adoption?
It was quite the journey. We found out, we tried to have children for about 10 years. And I sat in a doctor's office at 29 and was told that we didn't just have no chance of having kids. We had less than 0% chance of ever having children. And didn't I know I was almost 30? So we should stop thinking about that at that point. So I didn't really feel like I was that old, but the door kind of slammed in our face. So we went back and regrouped and started talking to other people, and we had considered adoption, and domestic adoption wasn't really something that felt right to us. We talked to several friends who had adopted internationally, and we started thinking and praying and going over that option for us, and it really seemed to fit. And then the next thought was, well, from where? So we didn't know for sure. And through a series of circumstances, India really just pretty much fell in our laps. And we started to learn more about the culture and about the people and about just everything about India in general. And we absolutely fell in love with it. The culture is amazing. The people are the kindest people I've ever met. And just really, the door just flew wide open. And by the time I was 30, we were matched with a beautiful, she was 1 at the time, year-old girl who happened to be blind. And we were excited to go ahead and start her process. And that was Lakshmi. So we matched when she was about 17 months old, and she came home at almost 4. So her process took a long time. There were some agency hiccups in the middle of it, and her orphanage actually ended up giving up their license. So our process got stuck in limbo for about 8 months, but she did come home before she was 4, and she is an absolute joy and amazing, awesome kid who just happens to be blind. And when we started thinking about the fact that we wanted another child, we wanted to give Lakshmi time to adjust. So she had been home about 2.5, 3 years, and we started talking about it again. And our social worker was like, she needs a sibling, doesn't she? So we started talking about it again, and ended up starting the process, but had no idea where this process would go, except that we knew we wanted to adopt from India again, because we wanted both of our girls to share our culture. And we also wanted to make sure that they always had somebody who looked like them and they could relate to on a level that maybe we couldn't. So that was really important to us. And we also decided to adopt another child who was blind, also for the reason that they could connect, and also for the reason that we have no clue how to raise a sighted child. We only know blind. That's what we know. So people are like, don't you want to raise a sighted child? We're like, I have no idea how to do that. So that led us to another adoption agency, and we found out about a file of a little girl who was 8 months old, and we were so excited. She was in Punjab, India, and it was a beautiful region, and we were so excited to learn more about her. And she was born without any eyes, and she was just this beautiful, perfect little baby, but we had to go through some hoops with the Indian government to get approval to be able to actually match with her. And right about the time that we applied for that approval, the process in India screeched to a halt, and no one was getting approved. And we waited for 17 weeks to get our approval to be able to match with this little girl who we had fallen in love with. And she dropped out of eligibility. All of a sudden she was gone, and she wasn't on the list, and we weren't able to match with her. We still weren't approved yet. It was right before Christmas. And then right after Christmas and after the new year, we started going, okay, what are we going to do? We asked our agency to look at other little girls who were blind in India. What were our options? And we saw the girl who we were going to match with, her orphanage posted pictures on Facebook. They weren't supposed to, but they did. And they posted a picture of this tiny little 6-month-old being held by the orphanage director, and talking about this was Bandana, and she was this little bitty baby who was found, and she only had one eye, and all of this stuff. And we were like, is this her? Is this our daughter? Because we've lost the one we thought was our daughter. And so we asked our agency about it, and they said, well, we didn't tell you about her because she only has one kidney. Are you okay with that? We were like, I don't think that's a big deal. Is that a big deal? And so we asked a few people, and they said, no, it's not a big deal. So we sat back and thought about it and prayed about it. And then we waited for our agency to tell us whether or not the first little girl had popped back up on the list. And we decided on a date that if she hadn't popped up on the list by then we would talk about reserving this other girl. The problem was, if we reserved this little girl, then we had to say goodbye to the first one because they were at the same orphanage, and it would be really bad form for us to reserve one girl at the orphanage and then let her go for another girl at the same orphanage. So we, the date came and went, and she wasn't there. And so we told
Danny, I think, Danny, you froze up on us. Danny,
Are you there?
Danny. I think
Uh-oh.
we lost her. Oh, okay. You're moving again. You're muted.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
There you are. Now you were kind of cutting out, and so I think
Okay.
where you kind of froze up on us was that if you were to choose this other one, that it's bad form for that you would have to change.
Is it freezing again?
Uh-oh.
Let's do this.
You there? Oh, frozen.
Okay, you're back.
Okay.
That you would have to choose a different orphanage.
Okay. Well, it would have been bad form to let go of, or to reserve one girl from that orphanage and then let her go and pick up a different girl from the orphanage. So if we decided to go with Bandana, then we would have to say goodbye to the first little girl that we had kind of fallen in love with. And so we ended up doing that, and we made our peace with it and say goodbye to her. But the hardest thing I've ever had to do is there it goes. The hardest thing I've ever had to do is walk into an orphanage and look at a girl that we fell in love with and then have to leave her there. But that is what ended up happening. And the good news in that part of the story is that she is home now with her own family, and we do talk to them regularly. But so we did say hello, or say yes to Bandana, and that started our journey to go and pick her up. We only knew very minimal things about her. We knew she was very small. We knew that she was born with one eye. We knew that she didn't seem to be gaining a whole lot of weight very quickly. And we knew that she had been abandoned. There wasn't a whole lot more information than that. So
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. You mentioned that the different, like, the hoops that you jump through to get her adopted, and I can say from my experience, like things move very slowly in India. Like the Indian government, the rules and regulations. Like I actually I'm the creator of the Little People of India, which is the national organization. Yeah, a co-founder of the National Organization for Little People. And I'm trying to get, and it's hard to do here in the States when you're trying to establish an organization in over country, because it's different processes, a different methods, a different attitude. It's a different, culture. And so I give you so much props for just sticking with it, for, staying through, and like by, just miracle to have another, lady, another girl just like be presented to you, for basically a shining light to make its way. So can I ask you a question about because did you go to India? Did you have to go to India a couple of times before the adoption? Okay.
We actually went to India twice, one for each daughter.
Okay.
So for Lakshmi, our trip was about 10 days. And for Hope, it would have been about half that, except we chose to take a kind of a heritage trip for Lakshmi before we went to pick Hope up. So we spent a week in her city before we actually went to get Hope. So that was a really great experience. So so both trips were about 10 days. But yes, we went twice. So first trip was to Bangalore and then to Delhi. And then second trip was to Delhi and Punjab.
Did you notice like the way, because like, disability in India is like seen as a burden. It's like it's a, almost taboo type of thing. Like with little people, it's, we're laughed at, we're mocked at. Like there are laws, of course, in the US that, allow us to assimilate, be a part of, society, and like we have it's easier to get accommodations. But in India, it's a whole different ball game,
Yes, it
just to fight for your humanity, to be seen as a person is such a struggle, and it's very isolating because India, there's 1 billion people. And imagine,
Right.
How many little people are there? Like, where are, like, just to bring a support system, just to, change attitudes, it's going to take a lifetime. So I guess going off of that, can you, what have you, seen as far as like the treatment of people with disabilities, of, even in the orphanages itself,
Uh,
how the children were treated and how, your daughters were treated?
Well, I can tell you the difference between my two daughters was night and day. My oldest was loved and cared for. She was she was at an orphanage that was geared towards children with special needs under a director who had a heart for people with disabilities in India. And she had made it her life's mission to make sure that people with disabilities were taken care of no matter what. So my oldest was with a foster parent. She had a very different experience than my youngest did. In my youngest orphanage, there were 5 children with visual impairment, all abandoned. And they mostly left in cradle systems, sometimes not left there. The orphanage itself did have a cradle where parents could leave children anonymously and not have to face consequences or even have anyone know that they had a child with a disability that they left somewhere. Hope did not have that experience. The details of her story are hers to tell when she's older, but she was not necessarily left in a safe way. But she was found and taken to a safe place. So we're very grateful for that. She spent the first 14 months of her life mostly in a crib, mostly being fed enough to stay alive. And because of malnutrition that she received very early on in life, she has been given a diagnosis of what's called psychosocial dwarfism. And it means that her brain decided that since it wasn't getting enough food and enough nourishment, that it would rewrite her growth plan. And she will be very, very small. The doctors are estimating her height will be about 3 feet 10 inches by the time she is full grown. Right now we're saying she's going to write her own story, so we don't know. She's literally the only person alive like her. So but that is something that that happened because of the conditions where she was. I think they meant well. I think they tried their best, but it is a different cultural view on disability. It's a different, it's just a different way of thinking about things. And I've had to come to grips with that because as an American, as someone who's lived here my whole life, it's very easy to get angry about those things and be upset for the way my child was treated. But I also have to understand that I didn't grow up there. And so I don't know the culture. I don't really understand everything. And I do think people did try their best. So it's just a different way of thinking about things. But I am very glad she's with us now.
I think that, I'm so glad that Samyukta was able to ask that question because I have a similar question
Mhm.
being that we live in Mississippi, and that kind of in and of itself is a subculture. And you having brown daughters, can come with its own thing, and then the disability and, all of that. So I'm sure the mama bear comes out quite a bit. Um,
Occasionally. We
so
get like, where did you get them? And I'll say something like Amazon, and we'll keep right on walking. Um, you have to develop a sense of humor about it, and also you have to. I try to tailor my responses and knowing that my girls are listening, because I want to educate, but I also don't want them to think that they have to answer every single uneducated question that they get.
Mhm.
Yeah, is she broken? What's wrong with her? Um, why does she look like that? Why don't you match? Those kinds of things. We get those a lot. And one of the things I've kind of, like, Hope doesn't talk as much yet, but Lakshmi does. And we practice a few things. And one of the things is, why do you need to know? When someone asks us a question like, what's wrong with her eyes? Well, why do you need to know?
That is a good response.
Yes.
The truth
Yeah.
is,
You don't. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it gives her the power to be able to say, this is my story, and you can have access to it if I want you to.
Yeah.
But if I don't, then it's really none of your business.
Yeah. Yeah. How has your experience finding medical care been, and how do you navigate that? Because my sister was severely disabled physically from her dwarfism, and in the dwarfism community, it's common to say, oh, just go to Nemours, which is in Delaware, or these
Mhm.
things that are not accessible for all of us, and certainly were not accessible to us growing up. And so I know firsthand the struggle. Mississippi certainly has brain drain, where the best and brightest tend to leave our state and go work elsewhere.
Okay.
So all of those things are factors. And so what has your experience been with such a high needs child?
Well, it's been a journey for sure. We started out not really knowing that much about Hope, and we really started out at the International Adoption Clinic in Birmingham, because that's the closest international adoption clinic. Most university hospitals have one, ours does not. So our choices really from here were Birmingham or Nashville. We went to Nashville for our oldest Lakshmi, but we chose Birmingham this time. Nashville had a glaucoma specialist, and that's Lakshmi's eye condition. So we decided to go there for her. But as far as we know, Hope didn't have glaucoma. So we decided that we would go to Birmingham because it wasn't as far of a drive. And we saw their geneticist there, who they do just a basic genetic test for an adoptive child when they come home, just to kind of get an idea of if there's anything we need to investigate further. And all they told us was that she had a large region of what's called homozygosity in her DNA, which meant she had a lot of copies of genes that were exactly the same. And that can be a red flag for a lot of different disorders and different things. But they also said that because of where she was in India, near Pakistan, that it was not uncommon for parents to be very closely related. So that a large swath of homozygosity in her DNA might not be that big of a deal. So we took that information back to our pediatrician, and we didn't really think much more of it until we started to notice some things. The fact that Hope only has one eye. She was born with a small right eye called microphthalmia, and then she was born with a completely absent left eye. No globe, no optic nerve or anything. She has one kidney on her right side that's fully functional. The kidney on her left side we thought was absent, but later found on a MRI that she does have a left kidney. It's just very small and misshapen and behind her bladder. So it's not in the right place, and it's about the size of like a dime. It's not very big. So it's not functioning very well. And then when we first got her, our first surprise was the fact that she has 8 toes. She has 10 beautiful fingers and 10 beautiful toenails, but 8 toes. We did not see that on any of her documents or any of her pictures. They very artfully cut her pictures off at the ankle, so we never saw her toes. But it was a beautiful surprise. I love her little feet. And now it looks like babies with 10 toes have too many to me. But she's, that was one of the first clues that maybe there was something more going on than just blindness. So that combined with the fact that her elbows don't straighten all the way, they're stuck at like, she can almost get them straightened, but not quite. And it feels like there's a bony block. They call it arthrogryposis, but not arthrogryposis multiplex, because she's only affected in one set of joints that we know of so far. She was born with a large piece of her skull missing. So all of those things kind of started to add up, and our doctor said, let's see if we can get some more genetic testing. Let's see if we can figure something else out. So we are blessed with a fabulous pediatrician who does a great job of trying to work things together. And really, he's been one of the best people for me to say, we got to figure this out because this isn't working. And our journey really started in earnest when Hope was home about 6 months. And when she came home, she was 11 pounds. She was 23 inches long, and she was 14 months old. Yeah, she was very, very small. She was wearing newborn clothes at 1 year and 2 months old. She had no teeth. She was not sitting up on her own because no one had ever really worked with her to teach her how. And her hair was breaking off in her hands, and her fingernails were peeling off. That's how malnourished she was. But within 2 days of having adequate nutrition, she was cutting 4 teeth. So we knew she could at least gain weight and that her body could at least process nutrients. But after she'd been home about 6 months, we had gone from 11 pounds to about 14 pounds, and we felt like we were doing good. And all of a sudden, she lost 3 pounds. And she wasn't gaining weight, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. We went on an NG tube for a little while. So that was really when we started to kick it into high gear, trying to figure out what's going on. We found a GI specialist here who has done wonderful things. And she was like, we've got to figure this out because she's too small for a G tube. She's like, she can get a G tube, but because of the way her anatomy is, because she's so small, it's like her organs are the right size, but she's tiny. So it's like everything is in a box that's too small. So in order for her to get a G tube, they would have had to have done a very invasive surgery that the doctors were concerned she wouldn't make it through. So we were like, okay, this isn't an option. The NG tube is awful. We hate having to change her tape and make her cry every 2 or 3 days. So let's figure this out. And we did go in and get whole exome testing, but it took about 6 months for it to come back. We had no idea what that would look like when it came back. And we were told that we might not even get an answer, that there could be something going on, but we might not know what it is. As far as whole exome sequencing goes, we were actually one of the lucky ones. We got an answer. We found out that she has what's called a variant of unknown significance on the gene SMOC1. SMOC1 is part of what's called the bone pathogenic, the bone morphogenic pathway, BMP. And it controls, before a baby is born, it helps with eye, kidney, heart development, And after the baby is born, it helps with bone development and growth, which are all the things that Hope has going on. So when we found out about it, we actually found out that she's the only one. Going into the testing, I was like, okay, we're going to get an answer. I'm going to find a syndrome. We're going to find a support group. There's going to be other parents who have walked this road before us. And sitting in there with a genetic counselor, I'm told that it's an extremely rare syndrome. Only 30, at that point, she was the 36th person to ever have been on record with it since 1935. And that she was the only the third case ever recorded with her variant. And by the way, the other 2 cases are from fetal autopsy. So those 2 babies didn't survive. So here I am with this now 2-year-old sitting in my lap going, wait a second, what? They died? Why are we here? And the answer is we don't know. We don't know why she survived and they didn't, except that she doesn't seem to have the same spinal abnormalities that they did. So we don't have a support group. We don't have people who have walked this road before us. And I don't have the benefit of having been her biological mother. So my medical history doesn't mean a hill of beans in all of this. Neither does my husband's. So that is another hurdle that we've had to face, that we don't have the benefit of a family history and knowing if anyone else before her has ever had this, and how they handled it, or if they survived. We don't know. We have zero information on her birth family. So that was kind of how we've been from there. But so of course I hit the books. I started trying to research. I started trying to figure out everything I could. And I started asking every single doctor, can you help me? Have you heard of this? What do I do? And I got a lot of shrugged shoulders and a lot of I don't knows. And we've got some great doctors here at our university hospital, but unfortunately they don't have all the answers and they don't always know. And sometimes you don't need doctors, because when your child is so rare that she's the only one, in the community, they kind of call it too rare to care. Not that they don't care about her, they do, but there's no benefit when she's the only one. You're not going to change a whole bunch of medical history. You're not going to make big waves or in the medical community when there's only one kid. It's just going to kind of be like, woohoo, it's just one. So I decided that I didn't need doctors. I needed scientists. And I started out trying to figure out how to do that. And I had a hard time.
Can you, first of all, what a moving, emotional journey. Like that was definitely a ride for you, your family, your daughter. It's just, I can, it's an understatement when I say that, Hope, Vandana, like she is such a blessing, to have, survived. You said like the 2 other babies who had that variant didn't, make it, but she did. She found you, she found your family and your sister and, her sister to have that love and support. And like, what a blessing, how fortunate, she is. And like you said, like, because she's too rare to care and, the doctors couldn't provide the answers. And now you're searching for answers through science. And I can't imagine like every day, like what you're doing and like what you're doing to better the life of your, children and, for children down the road. Because you don't know, like with this world, with this, changing evolved like landscape that we're living in, like you don't know what's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk about, you mentioned in your bio that you want one of your projects is to start a foundation to, support, children with these rare conditions. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so I'm really at the very, very beginning. I through searching, I found a podcast, and the creator of it actually has created a Discord server of parents of children with rare conditions, and I was able to connect with them. And through them, I found a researcher, Helen Hernandez of KAL Research, and she has been such a blessing working with me. And what we'll actually do together is find a scholarly article about Hope's gene or Hope's syndrome and the research that's been done in the past, which is very little, but it is there. And Helen and I will sit on a Zoom call and she will help me understand what this research says, because I'm not a scientist. I'm not a researcher. I don't get that stuff. But she is a researcher. And sometimes I have to go, okay, I read that it says the gene does this, but really what all I see is science word, science word, science word. And she'll go, oh, either she'll go, okay, this is what that means. Or she'll go, you know what? I just read science word too. So we'll try to figure that out. It's been such a blessing for me to work with her to kind of figure out what the gene means and what it does. And through her, I've actually made a connection with a couple of scientists who have studied my daughter's gene, one who had actually been studying it for 10 years and had never met a patient. So we have made that connection. And my first step towards creating a foundation is to find other families, because they've got to be out there. Hope can't be the only one. There's got to be other kids out there who maybe just don't realize that the combination of symptoms that they're experiencing means that they have a syndrome and they haven't been tested. So the first step on my journey towards building the foundation is kind of what we're doing right now, getting Hope's story out there and getting a chance to say, hey, if your kid was born with no eyes or small eyes and has abnormalities in their arms and their legs and has problems with their kidneys or maybe their heart, maybe you should get tested because we're here and we want to help you. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out if my goal for a foundation would be to develop a therapy, develop a gene therapy, develop a drug, develop something to help. And because in this gene, most of the changes happen before the baby's born, gene therapy is not really an option. It's not really something that we want to push towards. Pushing towards screening might be something that we do in the future, because there's no screening for my daughter's syndrome, which is called Ophthalmo Acromelic Syndrome, or Waardenburg's anophthalmia, or anophthalmos with limb anomalies. It has like 5 names, but there's no screening for it right now. But that may be something we push for in the future. But really what we want to do is to push the research forward to be able to say, this is what it looks like, and this is what to expect as your child gets older, because honestly, we don't have those answers right now. Is Hope's condition fatal? We don't know. We don't know, and there's no one who can tell us. I've been pushing for the answer, but we're just going to keep on trucking like she's going to fight like she always has. So we're going to keep pushing, and through getting the word out and trying to find other families, we actually found out that we knew another adoptive family who also adopted a girl from India. She's 8 years old and she has Hope's syndrome. We were able to talk to them and say, hey, she has this and this, and Hope has this and this, and can you get tested? And they did, and it turns out that they do have the same syndrome, just different variants. So
Oh, wow.
yeah.
So does that syndrome affect anything besides physical? Are there any mental?
There does seem to be a cognitive component, but we don't know for sure with Hope's variant. There does in the documented cases, there are some cognitive delays. it does cause a significant developmental delay. Hope is 4, and she started walking at 2 and started talking at about 3.5. So, but we were told she wouldn't do either. So it does seem to be coming. It's just very delayed. Hope is definitely behind. She's not cognitively a 4-year-old. She's probably closer to 2.5 or 3. But she's catching up just slowly. So there does seem to be a cognitive component. We don't know if that cognitive development is going to stop. We don't know. I'm always kind of waiting for it to stop, I guess. That sounds horrible, but I just don't know what to expect. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, is this it? Are we here? Are we where we're going to be forever? And then she'll push further. Like I was just there recently and thinking, okay, are we just going to be repeating words forever and talking to people in questions because people ask her a lot of questions? And, you know, when she's hungry, she'd say, are you hungry? It froze on my end, so I'm pausing.
Oh,
You're good.
yeah, you're good on our end.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Now you are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. It was like it froze on my end, so I'm gonna pause for a second. But she would say, are you hungry? Are you hungry? When she was hungry, because people would ask her. So just recently I was kind of like, okay, is this where we're gonna be forever? And then we were at a doctor's appointment for her sister, and she starts going, Summer, okay, so Summer, I did this. And she's narrating. And I'm like, wait, what? Where did that come from? And you might not be able to understand all of it, but she's da 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 da. I went to the hospital, da da da. You know, with camp, birthday party, and you know the words that she knows, she says. And she's been, instead of saying, "Are you done?" when she's upset, she'll go, "I'm done." So we're starting to see just recently more progression. So I guess as a mom of a kid who doesn't have a story or doesn't have a roadmap, we don't know where this is going. We don't know when we're going to hit another hurdle. You know, I'm always kind of waiting for it to jump up. It's, you don't want to be that parent, but sometimes just, okay, is the next curveball about to hit us? We were trucking right along earlier this year, and in May, she all of a sudden stopped eating as well, and she started sleeping way more than she had, and she went from 1 nap to 3 naps, and even when she woke up from her nap, she was exhausted. And so I took her to the complex care doctor, and she said, I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. And I was a little nervous because I'd done that before with other doctors, and they've kind of gone, oh, it's okay, she'll be fine. But this time she went, okay, let me look. And she looked in her file and noticed that her heart rate had been extremely high at her last 2 or 3 appointments, and said, well, let's get you in cardiology. And we went into cardiology and got all of the tests, the echo and the EKG and all of that. And I'm expecting the doctor to come in and go, she has tachycardia, we'll put her on beta blockers, it'll be fine. And I'm like, okay, this will be fine. He walks in and goes, she has a gigantic hole in her heart and needs surgery as soon as possible. And I went, beta blockers, what?
Yeah.
Because that was not what I expected. So she likes to throw us curveballs every once in a while. They say your heart is about the size of your fist, and her fist is about this big, and her hole was the size of a dime. So it took up most of it. Her heart had not been functioning well at all her whole life, but she was always so small that it was able to kind of keep up. Well, with about the time we started noticing her not acting right. She had hit a growth spurt and grown about 1.5 inches. And her heart just couldn't keep up anymore. So we had that surgery in the middle of May, and now all of a sudden we've hit another curveball. Her blood sugar is dropping for no apparent reason, and we don't know why. So we're figuring that out now. So just with her, I never know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, that's part of that too rare thing, right? You don't have anyone to show you what to expect. Last May we had a mom on the show who has a daughter who has MSD, which it's multi-sulfate something, and it's an extremely rare condition, and she has created a foundation to fund the scientific, study to hopefully figure it out. I think there's like maybe 10 in the world now.
Wow.
That have it. And I'm not going to try to explain it because I don't recall exactly, but basically it's a deterioration.
Yeah.
And Willow was average child developmentally, and then just started declining, and it's just a struggle. And so it sounds like you are interested in trying to create a similar foundation.
Similar, yes, to push the research forward. There's not really, I can't push for a cure because there isn't really one. We're fortunate in the fact that Hope's condition so far doesn't seem to be declining, but we don't know what will happen next. So if there ever is a steady decline or something that we can find a way to stop, then I'll probably change my focus immediately. Right now, we're hoping to push the research forward to find out what happens next, because I don't have any of those answers, except that I know that there's a child with her condition who just turned 9. So that gives me hope to know that she's doing okay and she's progressing in school. And while she does seem to have some cognitive delay, she's pushing forward and she's learning how to read Braille. And so my mind is going, okay, well, maybe we'll learn to read, and maybe we'll be able to go the next step forward, because so far a lot of the evaluators have told me, well, she doesn't have this, she doesn't have autism, but she's not going to ever be able to take care of herself. She's never going to be cognitively aware enough to do that. And I'm going, okay, well, we'll see, because so far she's destroyed every prediction that's been laid on top of her, including, where she was born and how she was born, how she was found. She shouldn't even be here. So as far as whether or not she'll be able to take care of herself, we'll see. The best thing that's been told to me by a researcher was she's going to write her own story. She's the only one, so nobody can tell you what's going to happen.
That is, so moving. And your daughter, Hope, and Lakshmi, they're both warriors, and and I wish, I know I say the same for Ange, we both wish you, so the best, and we definitely hope that, Hope, Hope survives as long as, and she couldn't have, better parents, and just the way that to see that the way you fight for her just to get an answer, and the way that you want to leave, the world, in better for her, and for other kids, that thank you. I'm just, it is just beautiful to hear your story, your words and everything. So I know we're wrapping up, we're getting close to the end of time, but I wanted to leave you with one more question, just to see how any that thing that you want our viewers to know, and especially because of the foundation that you want to start, how can our viewers support you, as you get going? So do you have a page? How can we donate? How can we support your journey?
So donations we don't know about right now, but best way that they can keep up with Hope and keep up with our journey as we make further steps is she does have a page on Facebook. It's called SMOC1, Hope's Journey with Ophthalmo Acromelic Syndrome, but the URL is facebook.com/Hope the Unicorn. And we call her our medical unicorn. You know, the adage that, you know, don't look for, when you hear hoofbeats, don't look for zebras, look for horses. But with us, we say, forget the zebras, just go straight for the unicorns, because it's not going to be anything you've ever seen before. So that's why her page is Hope the Unicorn. But I do chronicle her journey there. And that is the best way to keep up with what's going on and our next steps in research. And pretty soon I'm going to start kind of pushing to look for more families, and all of the information to how to help us should be on that page. So that's the best way. And just as many followers as we can get out there, it pushes the algorithm forward and helps get her page seen more and more. So if your viewers want to follow her page and share it, and just share when I post updates and things, that will just help to put her story and her information out there. We learn more about OAS every time we go to the doctor. So I try to keep her journey on there posted. Right now it's a lot about getting her prosthetic eye, and the process that we're going through there to help make sure that her skull doesn't kind of collapse in on itself. Because that is a possibility with her syndrome and the way that the bones might not develop the right way. So we are going through the prosthetic journey right now. And that's been really interesting. And that's all on her page.
Wow, I mean, we really could have keep going for sure. But there will be more on the page as time goes on, and there is more currently. So hop on over to that page and like Dani said, share it, because that's where the real awareness comes, and where the power comes in numbers is through people who encourage and support. You don't have to be directly impacted to care. There's no such thing as too rare to care. In the medical world, maybe, but not in the real world. And we have some really incredible viewers. So I hope that you guys get out there and really help encourage Dani and Hope and the family as well. This was a very, very, very good episode. We're so grateful for you sharing, Dani, and really helping us to understand a lot, honestly, man. I mean, through international adoption and the rarity, and then the condition itself, it's just so much. So thank you so much. As always, Sam Yukta, this was a really great episode. Grateful for all that you do for us. And yeah, that's it. So follow Dani, give us all my brain is empty. I'm sorry. I'm gonna cut that out because I
We'll post the
forgot.
Facebook. We'll post the Facebook link in the YouTube,
There you go.
in the YouTube page, so you can so definitely be on the lookout for that.
Yes, we will post the link. And yes, thank you so much. And we love all of you. We hope you have the best day. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, everyone. Take
Thanks
care.
for having me.